Hi, this is Danae, and today's video is all about how to improve your trills. Trills come up in basically every piece, and sometimes they can be a little bit intimidating. So here are some ways that I practice them, some tricks that I use to improve them, and also some things that I focus on when I am on stage in order to make them a little bit easier. So the first thing that I do is I try to focus on being as effective as possible with my movements. A trill obviously is quite a fast ornament, so we want to really save time where we can. And this is why when I play a trill, I put my fingers as close as possible to the key. Don't lift them if I don't need to, so really try to have them stuck to the key. And generally don't make any movement that is superfluous. And just play the trill as fast as possible with my fingers doing as little movement as possible, basically just the movement that is required. The second thing that I always focus on that is kind of linked to the first one is to keep my wrist very relaxed and still when playing the trill. I don't find it very helpful if the wrist starts moving back and forth in order to play the trill. The trill really is a job that the fingers do. So really take care that your wrist is still, is not really moving around, and just let your fingers do the job. And also keep an eye out that your wrist is relaxed, because once your wrist tenses up, your fingers definitely cannot move fast anymore. The next thing that I think about that I find quite important is that the trill should be part of the melody. I try not to think of the trill as an ornament that is just put on top of the melody or as something fast and mechanic, but rather as part of the melody. This also means that every trill is very different in character. So if you're playing a, let's say, fast allegro movement, the trill can be very brilliant and bright and fast. But if you're playing a slow movement and you have a trill, it can be very melodic and shaped. And you can actually think of every note individually and not melody, break, trill, break, continuation of the melody. In general, the character of every trill is different. So once you think of the trill as part of the melody, you'll see that every trill sounds different. And also when you embed it into that melody, it becomes much less daunting and much easier, because you don't think of it as this hard technical thing that comes up, but as just part of the melodic line. Now, I would like to get into some practice tips for trills. One thing that I do is I practice the trill in triplets. So I try not to think of it as two notes, but triplets, because that way the weight is distributed evenly between the two notes. Especially when I practice, when I play the piece, of course I don't suddenly think, oh yeah, think triplets right now. This is more a practice thing. So when I practice, I play the trill in triplets sometimes, and that way the two fingers that are involved in that particular trill get a little more even. Another thing that I do when I practice trills is alternate the fingering. So when I know that the trill that I will play in that piece, let's say, has the fingering 2-4, then I'll practice that same trill in other fingerings as well, because that way when you return to the original one, it gets much easier and more comfortable. Another practice tip that I have is to make sure that your trill is working independently from the rest of what you're playing at that moment. So very often, for example, we have some kind of pattern in the one hand and a trill in the other hand. And you want to make sure that that pattern works independently from the trill. And a way that you can check that is to play the pattern in the one hand and then play the trill silently in the other hand. That way you can check if you're actually playing the notes evenly in your left hand, for example. Also, you can alternate the tempo of the trill. Play a slow trill while your left hand is going through that same pattern. Play a medium pace trill, play a fast trill. And that way you can make sure that these fingers have nothing to do with the movement of these fingers. The last thing I want to mention is an exercise called Mozart's trill. Maybe some of you know it already, and I actually already mentioned it in my warm-up routine video because it is an exercise that I personally do every morning when I warm up at the piano. And that exercise really focuses on the change of fingering within one trill and also playing a trill in every single possible fingering. So you basically start with two notes, let's say C and C sharp, and you play them in every possible fingering without taking a break. So you play 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, 4, 5, 3, 4, 2, 3, and then back to the thumb. And what that actually does, because you're trying to create a very even trill while changing the fingering, is create a great independence between your fingers and give you the opportunity to really play an even trill while changing fingerings. And I do that exercise with both hands and in every possible constellation. So let's say C, C sharp, so white and black key, then black and white key, C sharp, D, and then I also do it in thirds. So let's say C and D sharp, and also C and E. These are the constellations that I always practice every day, and I find that it has really helped me because since I've been doing that exercise on a daily basis, the trills that come up in pieces have felt much easier and more natural to me. The tempo of that exercise can vary according to how you feel comfortable. I started out very slow and now have become much faster, obviously, but I would definitely say that this is an exercise that can help anybody if you're just beginning, practicing your trills, or if you're very advanced. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any other tips that you use when practicing trills or how you improve your trills, please let me know in the comments down below. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye!